Yeah,
Happy
definitely.
New Year, Max. My sister was telling me this story. This is like, so you'll get this because every guy will get this, right? So she's telling me a story. She saw this guy trying to go through some doors, and he had like bags on each shoulder, and he got stuck in the doorway. So now you know what I'm going to say, right? Because any normal person or any girl would very quickly work out that you put one bag down, you walk through with one bag and pull one bag behind you. But as men, we don't do that.
No,
This then
we
becomes
need the thrill of efficiency.
No, that's right. This is a challenge. This door has insulted us. And we're not going to lose to this door. So she saw him literally just get more and just like push and push and push with these two bags until he eventually like managed to somehow squeeze through with the bags.
Well, at least the bags didn't explode.
Loading on the way, probably, just to add to the humiliation.
Yeah. At which point you just go and say, I meant that. I meant to do that.
Well, you know, at which point you don't care because as a guy, you won. You got through that door and you didn't give up. You didn't put one bag down like the doors wanted you to. That's how smart we are. Hey, Max, you know what I missed doing these podcasts? You were away for 2 weeks. I hated you for all of those 2 weeks that you were away.
Why?
Well, because we weren't doing our podcast and I missed you. I'm never going to say that live. I'm going to cut that bit out.
Well, you recorded it, so it exists on record.
I miss doing these podcasts. I think we're going to do these podcasts forever, ever and ever and ever. I can see it. I was just imagining us like we'll be non-Gerians in our 90s. And what would we be talking about? We'd be talking about things like, you know, what are the best dentures to wear when you drink coffee?
Oh my God, I broke everything here.
Are you still breaking stuff?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, am I actually recording on the right? You know, I've done this before and I think I'm doing really well. And then I realize I am recording on the right. God, I can't believe I've actually done everything right.
So wait,
it's like I know what I'm doing almost.
You're doing it right.
That's what the computer says. The computer says Nick is right. Happy 2021.
Yay, Happy New Year.
Yeah. What an explosive start to the new year. It's like we've had a year's worth of news in the first 2 weeks.
Well, let's talk about that. I like that.
No, let's not talk about that. Everyone else is talking about it. Let's talk about
fun. Coffee. It's a lot of fun.
I'll get death threats. I've had death threats before. I've had lots of death threats. Yeah, I had death threats from Americans before as well.
Oh, why?
Many years ago. What did you say? In 2003. I was running a company that did a lot of hacking, cybersecurity work. And we wrote a white paper on how to hack the CIA, how to hack the CIA without actually hacking them. And we had the chief of counterintelligence, the CIA, comment on our white paper saying it was very good research. I won't go into the details of it, but basically it was nowadays you look at this very simplistic stuff. Back in 2003, it was quite novel. And we got various death threats saying we'd hurt Homeland Security, stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. So, hey, Max.
Yes.
I'm drinking some amazing coffee. I'm actually drinking. I was going to ask you whether you tried the new Carvetti packet that you got. Then I realized I still haven't signed you up. What do you think, Max?
It's amazing. It looks amazing. But I have to say, I actually have the 3 Carvetti coffees. I decided to get the 3 espressos things, blend stuff thing. I don't know if they're single origin or not, but that is right. I got the Latitude again, blend, which is brilliant. But we knew that.
Yeah.
I got myself Fortitude. I think that they all end in etude. They're all
it's a theme.
Dude.
They all end in dude.
Etude, yes. So there is the Fortitude and the Solitude. One is more nutty and one is more is a little more sweet. Both brilliant. Really, really nice coffees. I had a bit of a problem because I actually didn't manage my selling of the of the Oscar, which has been sold.
You sold it. Well, congratulations.
I sold the Oscar.
Right.
Yeah. So I sold that, and I went to my shed, and I picked up the Paros and said, finally, I'm gonna get my Paros back. It's much more convenient, and realized that actually I started servicing it and I never finished.
So all this time that you've had it,
I had it in parts,
and now that you need it, it's not ready.
Yeah.
Such
so
a guy.
I had to get. I had to get a boiler gasket, and they were nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, come on, maybe I can put it back in there and just, put very gently. I didn't fit.
No.
It was leaking from everywhere. So
yeah.
But now it's working. I finished it.
Where did you get the gasket from?
Oh, I got it from my buddy, from Adrian, from Give It the Beans.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Give him a punt. Yeah. I tell you what, I saw a picture on your you did on Facebook of some kind of wooden finish you did. That was great. You never offered to do something like that for me.
Oh, I can. Actually, if you want, I can. Oh, you disabled my.
I haven't disabled anything.
You've disabled my screen sharing. I can't.
No. That's default. The computer doesn't like you. Hold on a second. I'll do it, but then only on condition that for the listeners, because we have more listeners than we do people that subscribe on YouTube.
But that's because
so wrong. You've got to describe it. Hold on.
I'm going to describe it.
Describe it. Multiple participants. Hold on. I've got to go through a menu structure. Who can share? All participants. Who can start the sharing when someone else is sharing? I don't even know what that means. I just share something. Oh, there you go.
So that is what I've done.
So what we're basically seeing is a wooden base for your Paros. But what I don't understand is what was there before.
There was a plastic thing with it's a plastic tray basically that holds the drip tray, and it doesn't come all the way through. So what I've done here, I've made the machine much taller, so I can fit all of the cups underneath and a scale. So basically, there is about a mile between the coffee spout and the drip tray. So I can fit scale and tall cup. So I can make an Americano and wait if I want to, because I'm fancy. Before there was a tray that was going through the legs, if you see them, and it's a piece of plastic really, so it doesn't age very well. It's this machine is from 1999, and you can imagine that the plastic starts to crack.
Well, 1999 wasn't that the year or the time when women wore those big shoulders? Was that the 80s or the 90s?
That's the 80s.
It all becomes a blur.
That's the 80s. 1999 is almost 2000. That is 21 years ago.
Okay.
I hate to break it to you, but yes, it's
that was the dot-com boom then. So this came out in the dot-com boom. Well, look, so just to describe to everybody, people don't know what a Paros looks like.
Yeah, so a Paros is a very unusual coffee machine. It's the inside is literally a Gaggia. It's a Gaggia Classic, and they stack next to it. They stack a very capable conical burr grinder. The only problem of this grinder that I can think of is, there are a few really. There are a few design flaws. The first one is that there is a lot of wastage because it's got a lot of retention. It's not really thought for single dosing, even though you're actually doing single dosing because you have a timer,
right? And
you grind based on time, so you can do a single dose or a double dose. But there's a lot of coffee that gets retained in the shaft, which I don't particularly like. They should have done something different. So that's gonna be my next go-to thing to do there. But I'm not too sure about it. And you have a Gaggia Classic right next to it, basically. So it's a Gaggia Classic with a grinder, with an integrated grinder.
Mm.
It looks really nice because it doesn't have anything underneath.
Well, it's kind to me, it's unique looking because it looks like a I've forgotten the word. It begins with the C, but like with those Greek architecture with the columns.
Yes.
What's the name? What's the name? The Greek architecture with the columns, not columny.
Anyway,
Corinthian. It's Corinthian looking.
Corinthian is a kind of column.
Column, I know.
So you have Corinthian.
Well, I know, but it sounded clever. Please don't undermine my cleverness when I'm sounding good.
Okay, but you have three kind of. Actually, it's the top of the column. There is the Corinthian, the Doric, and the Ionic.
I actually knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it comes back to you when
obviously,
you hear it.
But I knew it.
I knew that.
I just do I get points for knowing but not remembering? I do get points.
Absolutely.
It's my game. I get points.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's very column. It's got these columns, and there's like this top part which looks like a kitchen work surface. It's got Paris on it. Then there are these silver chrome columns that go down. And then there's this middle bit that's empty, except for the brew head coming down. But on the bottom, you've replaced something that's a horrible plastic 1990s Gaggia, you can imagine, with actually, I must say, really, really nicely done wood base. It looks beautiful.
Yeah. The wood base is actually a chopping board.
Oh, is it? Oh,
well, it's a chopping board. It's a chopping board. It's a butcher block actually that I got from Tesco for I think £25. So quite expensive one, to be honest. And I carved it with a CNC. So I designed the tray to be exactly the replica of the tray that you have on the Paros. And then I've engraved on the left hand side. I've engraved the Gaggia symbol and also the little coffee machine pot thing that is also in the Gaggia. I think it's in some classics.
Have you got like some kind of laser engraver thing that does wood?
No, I have a carver. I have a CNC router to engrave.
Okay.
And underneath, I've actually also engraved Paros, but written in Greek characters, because Paros is a place in Greece.
Right. Yeah,
and
course,
this is inspired by a Greek place,
It's a unique machine. It's a really unique machine. I tell you, got a lot of love on Facebook, and I know you're never going to sell it, but if you did, I'm sure people would pick it up. Never, you're never going to
sell it. I've also done another little upgrade on the right hand side. You didn't notice it, but I've put the Rancilio Silvia steam wand, which I absolutely recommend.
I didn't know what kind of steam wand it had before, so.
It's got an old style automatic frother, which is not very good, but you can take it off, and it's not the Pannarello one, so you can actually take it off and you have a straight pipe. But this is much better, and you can actually dismantle it to clean it properly. So it's
right.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
How many bars of pressure do you get out of that thing? It's not a lot, right?
No, very good actually. I think it's a smaller pipe. It's a smaller orifice, so it actually it keeps the pressure for a little longer. I can froth for a significant amount of time. I can actually make a cappuccino, but of course, going from the what do you call it?
Oscar.
From the Oscar to these, I went in there. I was like, yeah, that's almost frothed. That should be. I'm worried of overstretching it. It was lukewarm.
Yeah, yeah. I know when I moved. Yeah. So, but that's another conversation. We're going to talk about today, Max, is we're going to have this massively super interesting conversation about PIDs.
Yes.
Because I've learned a lot about PIDs over the last, where did you go? I stopped sharing.
I stopped sharing.
Yeah. I learned a massive amount about PIDs.
In the last 2 hours.
yeah. No, in the last, I don't know, couple of months even, because I was I've been looking at buying a new machine, as we talked about, and I said, well, I must have a PID, of course, but then I realized, as I looking into different machines and how PIDs worked on different kinds of machines or didn't work as well, I realized that a PID doesn't make sense or didn't make sense on certain types of machines as much as they do on others. And it got to be like kind of almost a bit confusing to me why PIDs on single boiler machines were fantastic, but why they went so great on heat exchange machines. And of course, it all makes perfect sense when you understand the physics behind it. So actually what it comes down to is what a PID is, or what the different kind of thermostats are that can be used. That's quite an interesting thing to know to begin with, so you know what kind of thermostat you're getting on your machine. What you want to do with your machine, so whether you're going to be like me, whether you're really interested in getting the maximum amount of an espresso that you can, the maximum latitude, the maximum dynamic range, whatever you want to call it, to bring out all the different flavors of perhaps high altitude, single origin, or fancy la-di-da coffees, and whether you're going to whether milk is important to you, whether you're going to be doing a lot of milk drinks, in fact, whether you're going to be making a lot of drinks back to back. So all of these different things will help you. All of these things will be a factor in determining what kind of machine is right for you. But the PID is of critical importance if temperature control is of high importance. And temperature control is of high importance if you're really drinking espresso type coffees and trying to get the most out of them. So let's sort of unwrap it a little bit.
But I would actually, before we do that, I want to ask you a question. So why do you think that why do you say that it's vitally important, but then most of the espresso machines actually are heat exchanger, where the temperature control is much harder?
Yeah, exactly. Because people who are going for heat exchanger machines, or who should be going for heat exchanger machines, are people who want to make milky drinks. If you're not going to make any milky drinks, then there's kind of almost no point. So the heat exchanger machine, it works because you've got one boiler, and that boiler is heating up the water in for the brew head. So you're heating up the steam, the water for the steam, and then there's a pipe that comes out from that. I can explain this really badly, then you can like cover up my mistakes and still make me look smart. But the pipe that comes out.
Sorry, you go ahead.
The pipe that comes out from that, basically, that's where the heat exchange comes in. So the cold water runs around that boiler, and there's an exchange of the heat from the boiler into the pipes that then goes into the brew head. Now, the problem, and if you talk about a PID, the PIDs are connected into the boiler. In fact, you're always measuring the temperature at the boiler, which is where one of the interesting complexities comes in, because, of course, depending upon what's between the boiler and your coffee, the temperature can change quite significantly. And in this case, what's between the boiler and the coffee are a lot of pipes. And so what you get in a heat exchanger machine, you get is you get a temperature that's measured at the boiler, and then you get and then the heat's transferred into the pipes wrapping around it that then go into the brew head, and working out that if I've got this temperature in the boiler, I will get that temperature at the brew head. Requires some math, and they've been doing that, and they've been doing algorithms. But traditionally, there was quite a range of several degrees in temperature, usually on heat exchanger machines, of variance. And that would also then change depending on how you used and how many coffees you made one after the other. So basically, on a heat exchanger machine, traditionally, and I say traditionally because I'm going to come into some interesting things I did read actually quite recently, that traditionally on the heat exchanger machines, you wouldn't really be able to guarantee a very accurate temperature at the brew head. Have I got that right?
Yeah, I think so. So the way it works, to put it simply, is like a radiator.
Yeah.
So your brew head is your radiator, and your boiler is your boiler. So you have a pipe that moves hot water from the boiler to the brew head. The brew head gets hot, and it equilibrates at a certain point, which is several degrees under the temperature in the boiler. And that is because there are heat losses in the time, and also you have flow restrictors sometimes. For example, in the Oscar, you don't have flow restrictors, and that's why it gets very, very hot if it stays idle for a long time. And so one modification you can do, if you don't make many coffees one after the other, is actually put a flow restrictor in the pipes that go to the brew head, so that you increase the difference between the difference in temperature between the brew head and the boiler. But yeah, you're bang on that. Most of the modern machines, actually, you will get if they have a PID, you will get the temperature of the boiler, what is equivalent to the temperature at the brew head. So they will tell you, if you put the boiler at, I don't know, 135, you're gonna get 96 degrees at the brew head, and the water that comes out is at 96 degrees.
Well, the first one, and this is the point. So what they've done is this is what I've been reading up on recently, that they've done a lot of work on the algorithm. So there's a mathematical algorithm that says, if the temperature at my boiler is this, then by the time it reaches the brew head, it's that. The trouble comes with if you're making 2 or 3 espressos in a row. And especially and then also what kind of group head you've got, because most of the group heads in these machines are E61 group heads, which means they've got some, water circulating around them. And depending on then, not just how many coffees you're making in a row, but how much time between those coffees, and whether you do a cooling flush. And if you do a cooling flush, how long you run the cooling flush for. There's lots of subreddit chats talking about, well, I ran a cooling flush for 7 seconds and I got this response. Oh no, you shouldn't run a cooling flush. You should run a cooling flush every X amount of shots, and it should be for no more than 3 seconds. Well, this sounds like an awful lot of thinking to do before you've had a cup of coffee.
Yeah, because one actually would think that with such a big machine, you have a much bigger thermal mass.
Yeah.
So you should be able to have a few coffees before you start actually changing the range. But seeing it also with the Oscar, you would see that if you do 3 coffees one after the other, the boiler will kick in, because the pressure in that case is actually generated by the pressure. So it's not even as sensitive as a PID.
You're talking about a pressure stat.
Yes.
So let's go back a second, actually. Let's go back to the basics and say, why is temperature stability important? And let's cover the basics. So you're talking in centigrade, because I can't do this whole Fahrenheit nonsense.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, typically coffee is extracted at 200 Fahrenheit, which is convenient.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't make any sense to me. So
yeah, I have 200 Fahrenheit. I don't know. That's some kind of other
96.
Language. But no, in centigrade. So I think
94.
Is that 94?
I think.
So if you got, I don't think it is. I think it's lower.
I don't know. I didn't check.
Hold on. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Alexa, what's 200 degrees Fahrenheit in centigrade?
200 degrees Fahrenheit is about 93 degrees Celsius.
It's 93 degrees, Max.
93.
Yeah.
So, I said 94. That's close enough.
Yeah. It's close
enough.
PID. Well, you're not a PID. You're a heat exchanger. So if you got a lot of thermal mass, so you should make up for it. So the importance is that depending on the type of beans that you've got and the roast level, hotter water extracts faster than lower temperature water. And on a darker roast, you will get a very different flavor. You'll get a much smoother flavor from a darker roast at a lower temperature. So I've actually been dropping my coffee down to about 92. I have to say.
That's interesting.
Yeah. The key thing is, some people will complain and say, but I like my espresso hot. Well, I like my espresso hot too, but I just make sure my cups are hot first. Yeah. So I make sure my cups are really warmed up. And
also, can I interrupt you 1 second?
Only if you're quick.
I'm going to speak very slowly then. People are, I like my espresso hot. Really? Can you actually drink water at 92 degrees?
I'll try if there's espresso in it, mate.
Yes. But then you're not going to be able to taste anything for the next day. So...
No, I don't know. I mean, 92 degrees. I don't know what temperature it is by the time it hits the cup, but I knock it back. No problems at all.
When you go to a cafe and they have the cups sitting on the coffee machine, and they serve you the coffee within 10 seconds of it coming out of the coffee, and you stir it and you drink it, it burns. You can't drink it straight away. So that means that even if it's 100 degrees or whatever it is when it comes out, it's undrinkable until it reaches about 70 or less.
I can't believe that. I drink my espresso straight away, pretty much.
Because your cups are not as hot. Because you're
Maybe.
heating them up in where?
What, my cups?
Mm-hmm.
I actually waste a lot of energy here, and I either heat up the kettle and warm them that way, or nowadays I just run the tap, and I got very hot water out the tap, and I put
Not hot enough.
Oh, okay.
If you do the kettle, for example,
Yeah.
pour the kettle in, and make sure that you can't hold the cup anymore in your hand. That's when it's hot enough to pour the coffee in, and then you wouldn't lose any heat when you drink it. And then
Okay.
when it's the next day, you can actually taste anything.
Well, yeah, my mother always had this ability to. She used to pass us the vegetables across the kitchen table on the farm, and you'd grab them off of her and scald your hands. I mean, literally like you were holding a hot coal. I don't know how she could do it. She had like asbestos for hands.
Yeah, that's my wife as well manages to handle.
Yeah, and you think that's normal? She hands it to you, so you take it because that's what you. And then you
like, how do you do that?
How do you do that? Yeah, exactly. So well, anyway, so where we were at. So the temperature on the coffee is important because the different types of beans and different roast levels you will want to extract at a different temperature to get the right to pull the flavors out.
Yeah.
And so that's number one. But number two, which is, I don't know, as maybe even more important, is the stability of that temperature. And what we mean by that is that it runs at that temperature through the shot, so that as much as possible through the entire shot, but then from one shot to the next. So if you're making 2 shots in a row, even if, by the way, those people that are out there saying, well, I only make espresso for myself, sure, but how many of us are actually making an espresso, tasting and saying, I can do better, throwing it away and putting another one in? And so I noticed on the PID that I put into my Gaggia Classic Pro that the temperature drops quite significantly as I'm pulling the shot. The temperature in the boiler drops quite significantly. So I actually have no idea what temperature is hitting the brew head, and I've actually no idea how the dynamics of that heat works, and whether it's retained in the head, whether when it goes back to the boiler to 92 or 93 or 94, whatever I'm brewing it at, what temperature it actually is when it hits the brew head. So I imagine that there's all sorts of things that are not ideal in that setup, but then what do you expect for a machine at that price range? And so that brings us back to, if you really want a good quality machine, or you really want great espresso, and you're going to get into the finesse of tasting, wonderful high altitude beans, and being able to tune your machine so that you get the best out of those beans that you possibly can, really experience the amazing flavors that you can get from them, then you're going to need a machine that is where you can control the temperature, and where that temperature is going to be stable through the shot, and at least for a few shots in a row. And that comes down to more than a PID. It comes down to a PID and the type of machine that you've got, the type of mechanics that are inside, the components that you've got inside the machine. Yeah. Is that right, Max?
Yes, and I think also it's about the thermal mass of the machine. So the reason why you see that the temperature is dropping while you're pulling a shot is because a Gaggia Classic has a small boiler, small amount of water, and it's made of aluminum, which conducts heat very quickly, which is a good thing. That the reason is because the way that water will heat up, it's the same. So the temperature transfer from your boiler to the water happens at the same speed. Whether your boiler is made of steel, for example, or copper or aluminum, that makes a difference. Because if it's for example in steel has a very slow temperature transfer, so it will stay hot for a long time, which means that it will respond slower to changes inside the boiler. I don't know if I'm. It's a little.
No, it makes perfect sense, which is why it's even more important to have a PID, because the way that those work
Exactly.
is they have an algorithm on them that is sensing, because you can imagine that heating and there's no cooling. This is actually the really important point on the whole way these espresso machines work is they heat up, they can control the heating up of the machine, but they don't have any mechanism to cool it back down again.
Exactly.
So that means that they've got to predict.
I will stop you there. Some machines actually they do have. They actually self auto flush.
Oh, the auto flushing things. Yeah.
And that's, I think it's in Sage. They do that. It's a bit wasteful, but it does work.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. And in fact, we do that manually when you steam some milk on the Gaggia Pro, and then you want a Classic Pro, and then you want to make an espresso again. You go back to letting out some water and some steam out to it in order to try to flush the boiler and cool it down.
Yeah.
But imagine generally, for just to keep this kind of maybe simple, is that the PID. The PID is an electronic device. It's like
because we haven't explained it.
We haven't explained what this damn thing is.
Exactly.
And we should go back to. Oh God.
So let's start from the beginning. Let's explain what's the current setup in the normal Gaggia Classics or pretty much all of these kind of machines. You have two different resistors, two different temperature sensitive relays. And you have these two are put either on the side of the boiler or on the top of the boiler. One is for 95 degrees, I think, or 96. I don't remember on top of my head, to be honest. And one is for 130, I think. And those are fixed. So that means that once the boiler reaches that temperature, that relay is going to cut off, and the heating element is going to stop heating. If the temperature is under the threshold, you're going to have the heating element is going to heat up. The speed at which these relays respond to changes is actually quite slow. And that is why a PID is an improvement in this thing.
They also wear out because they're mechanical.
Yes. I don't know how they work, to be honest, because they are literally just
I've seen them. I was actually looking up pictures of them, and they are just as you described. They're like these two little metal type probes, and you can actually buy them. Not that you'd want to do this, but they manufacture them to switch at certain temperatures.
Yes, you can actually get them for different temperatures as well.
You can get them for different temperatures. So, but the temperature you've got, that's the temperature. There's no dialing it in. Yeah. And when it hits that temperature, it hits the relay, switches off. Yeah.
Yes, but the speed at which this happens is actually slow.
Very slow.
So you will have the machine cycling. So you will have heating it up, overshooting a little bit, and then cooling down again, and then reheating and cooling down. Instead, if you have a PID is a computer, a computer controlled probe. So you have a probe that measures the temperature, and you can actually have a series of probes. I've seen it in a few custom machines. You can actually have even 6 probes in different parts of the boiler, and then you take the average of those, and then you have a solid state relay, which is a much faster reaction. It's got a much faster reaction, and that is what cuts off or triggers the heating element. So you can fine tune the heating and the cutting off. So your fluctuations are much smaller. So your overall temperature is much more stable.
And in fact, there's an algorithm when it's heating up there is an algorithm which predicts where it will get to. And I think it's taking measurements I think it's taking 100 measurements a minute or something like this. So it's constantly remeasuring, seeing the rate of heating, so how fast it's heating up, and then changing the target temperature so that it will stabilize at the right temperature. Because obviously, if it just cuts off when it's hit the right temperature, it'll continue heating for a while. So that would be wrong. So there's a bit of there's a sort of math that goes in there, and you can program these things. Now, it's also important to say that you get the PID not just for the brew, but also for the milk, for the steaming boiler as well. So that's typically, this is what you'd see out of the box in a dual boiler machine. Typically, what you see out the box at the lower end on the Gaggias and the Rancilios and at that sort of level, as Rancilia Silvias, is you will see the mechanical thermometers. So the ones that it's probably a different name for it, but the ones that we described first.
Yeah, they're thermal relays.
Thermal relays or whatever they're called. So they're pretty there because they're cheap. And then for the heat exchangers, interestingly, traditionally you had a pressure stat, which measured the temperature in a different way. It measured it by the pressure of the steam, because you just had the one, had the one boiler. And depending upon the pressure, you could interpret what the temperature was. And that was probably a good solution for heat exchanger machines at the time.
Yeah, but I mean, it still is. It's quite because pressure is proportional to temperature. So if you have 1.4 bar, it's about 135 degrees in the boiler.
I will take your word for that, but I will be looking it up later in Wikipedia. And if you're wrong, you're going to have to go back and edit it. So
okay.
It's
like a pressure cooker.
Okay. So you've got these three systems. You've got the mechanical ones, which is the cheap end. You've got the pressure stats for the heat exchangers, and you've got the PIDs, which are more expensive for the upper end machines, especially the dual boilers. You say, well, why don't you just put a PID on the single boiler machine? Actually, that's what I would love to have. I'd love a single boiler machine. I realize I don't need a dual boiler because I never make any milky drinks. So it's not a single boiler machine. But what?
Oh, you have it.
I have one I put in myself, but the problem is that the rest of the components don't really complement it. So I would love to know, if I bought some scientific equipment, I would know what temperature I'm actually getting out at the brew head. So let's actually talk about brew heads for a second. We're not going to go into deep into it. So I think that's a topic for another conversation. But you know that there are at least, 3 types of brew heads. I'm going to make a fool of myself because I'm sure there's many more, right? There's many different designs. And the typical old ones, the E61 from the 1960s or 70s or something, where it would take some water from the boiler, circulate it around, and basically warm up your brew head that way. But that's but there's no correlation. There's generally a bit of distance between the boiler and the group head, and there is no correlation necessarily that you could easily make between the temperature in the boiler and the temperature in the group head. So a lot of people generally nowadays consider the E61 to be, if your goal, again it goes back to what your goal is. If your goal is to extract the most amazing coffee from your expensive beans, then an E61 group head, even if it's paired with a PID, may not be the best choice. But if you're making loads of milky drinks and you're going for a heat exchanger type machine, then maybe it's not going to make a massive amount of difference. I mean, are you going to be able to pick up all the nuances in that amazing, single origin coffee when you put a bunch of milk in it? So it's horses for courses, as we say in the old jolly United Kingdom.
I never heard that.
You never heard horses for courses?
No.
Oh, I might be showing my age. Yeah.
Well, or it might be showing that I'm not British.
Or it could be that.
I thought that the accent was a big giveaway, but
yeah, you hear. When are they exporting you, Max?
I don't know.
Exporting you? We can't export you because we don't have the paperwork.
No, you can't. You can't export.
We can't. That's all messed up now. There's nothing can be. Did you hear about those? That British company makes bicycle saddles. Yeah, called Brooks. Yeah, and they sell all over the world. Over the world. There's only one country they don't sell in. That's Britain, because they can't bring it in. They can't get the paperwork done.
So if you have a Brooks saddle, hold on to it. It might be valuable.
Yeah, sell it on eBay right now, because someone will pay a lot of money for it, because he can't get them from Brooks themselves, unless you live in another country, any other country around the world, anyone except England, where they're made. So anyway, so for me, I really want to have amazing coffee, and I don't care about the milk. So I really want, so therefore I don't really need a dual boiler. I want to have a PID on a single boiler, but it gets more complicated, because I am such an sophisticated gentleman.
Very sophisticated.
You may not have realized, but I'm a very sophisticated gentleman that wants to have also flow control, and they don't put the bloody flow control on the single boiler machines. You have to go up to the fancy $2,500, $5,000 machines to get one of those.
There is a modification you can do to a Gaggia. I don't particularly like it, but there is one. You have to change the pump, so you can't use the normal Urca pump, but you have to use a different one that has a resistor before the pump, and then you can put in a dimmer switch.
Yeah, you've already lost me. I just want to buy one. But this is the kind of problems that. Oh, what happened? Well, I'm back. Gee, that was like, what's going on? Going on my camera. But anyway, but also then on the group heads, I want to have a single boiler machine with the PID, and I want a group head that is going to help facilitate that thermal stability. And so this is my journey that I've been on when I'm trying to pick. I'm sure I can't be the only person who's going on this journey. So hopefully this will be useful for people. But I would say there are machines out there, for instance, like the Lamazoccos, which have a saturated group head. And that's just a fancy way of saying that they put the boilers and the group heads I think they put them close to each other, but they found a way.
They circulate the water into the group head.
They circulate it actively rather than passively, like in the E61, and it keeps it at a certain temperature. I know on the commercial machines, there's like a little boiler right above the group heads. So it keeps it like you actually can change the temperature on each individual group head, which is very cool. And if I had multiple groups, then that's definitely what I would have. But
if I had multiple £1,000 to spend, I would also go for a Sanremo coffee racer.
Yeah, a San Remo. I was wondering what you're saying. You mean a San Remo coffee racer? Then nice.
Sanremo. It's Sanremo.
San Remo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trust me on that.
I'm not sure. I don't trust anybody that says trust me. That's very shifty.
Trust me, I'm a doctor.
What are you? Okay. So you've got the whole group head issue as well. The challenge that I'd love for people to write in and tell me which machine I should buy, because I really am in the market to go and buy something. I'm going to drop some money. I'm actually kind of hoping that somebody's going to come along and say, Nick, just look, I've got a whole bunch of machines here. Why don't you just keep trying them till you find one you like?
I would love that. Can I be part of it?
Yeah, sure. I'll send them over to you after I'm done with them. We'll just go through
some of them might get lost in the mail.
It wouldn't be our fault. It'll be Brexit or COVID.
Yeah, it's definitely Brexit. Yeah,
Brexit or COVID. It's not our fault. That's what we say. Well, because there's a number of companies. I got actually sent a coffee company out in the Netherlands. I'm going to say sent me a whole bunch of stuff. Max, I didn't tell you this. They sent me a whole bunch of stuff right before Christmas. It still hasn't arrived, and apparently it's because they sent it DHL, and DHL now says no, we're not delivering to the UK because paperwork.
Fun times.
Yeah. So I don't know if that'll ever arrive. But so anyway, so when we send all that equipment back, it'll be the same issue. It'd be like we sent it. I don't know where it is. COVID. COVID.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, Brexit.
Yeah, it's like COVID, but COVID is like Brexit.
Yeah.
Brexit.
It's like the perfect storm of excuses. So
thermostat.
So thermostats. So we got the three thermostats. We've got the mechanical thermostat. We've got the pressure stat on the heat exchanger machines, and we've got the PID, which is the digital probe that goes directly into the boiler, which is
Mhm.
obviously like, the way to go. I think PID prices are coming down, and that's why we're seeing them in more and more systems.
Yeah, well, because you can actually make them. I mean, it's not a complicated thing to do, and nowadays all of these things they're becoming more and more available. I mean, anyone can get nowadays an Arduino board, and that's all you need, really. That's it.
Yeah, you can make them with an Arduino board.
Yeah.
You've been promising to do a show on that for ages, Max, and you've let everybody down.
I
What
have
do
the
you?
shield. I am thinking on how to implement everything. Now I've done the base for the coffee machine. Now I'm gonna try to make a scale, and then I'm going to try to do some things with the timings and the flow.
All I heard, Max, was a lot of "I'm going to try."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to try to succeed. I have to try. If I don't
So
try, I don't succeed.
well, on my little journey where I'm working out what I'm going to buy, I've been looking at those different things, and then I realized that here's some new information. Is that so I was looking at, I like ECM and also Profitec because they're
Yes.
part of, they're like a sister company to ECM.
Mhm.
I actually didn't know that. I think they were, they're spun off by ECM, I think in 2012.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, just found that out.
I thought it was a Rocket that was
Nope.
part of something
It
else.
was ECM spun off Profitec, I think in 2012. They're both made in Germany. So I actually like German-made machines. I like Italian-made machines too, and German. But there's something about the Germans. I just trust them. They're not going to screw you.
They have a brand. They sell a brand.
Oh, sorry, I forgot I was talking to an Italian there. Of course, the Italian machines are fantastic, just like their cars. But
they are as good as cars can be. Briefly.
No, actually, no. The Italians have got a great reputation for engineering, and their espresso machines are excellent, really well built. But I do like German. I like German engineering. I'm not going to be afraid to say that. And so Profitec I've got this spun off, and anyway, so they've been making this line. So the idea of the Profitec was to maybe make versions of machines that are a little bit more affordable. And to people than some of the ECMs were. So for me, ideally, I guess if I wanted all the features I wanted, I'd go for an ECM Synchronica, but that's a dual boiler machine that costs about £2,500 or more. Yeah, but it is shiny. In defense, it is shiny. But then the Profitecs were coming to come down there. So for about £1,600, there's a very nice Profitec. With the same kind of build quality. It's also shiny, but they have the PID and they have the flow control. I was actually looking at the Pro, I think it's a Pro 600. Everyone's going to say 700, Nick, 700. No, actually 600. But I don't think I don't think you can plumb it in. And I want to plumb it in because I want that line pressure. I want to be able to plumb it in so that I can get what do they call it? Line pressure,
pre-infusion,
line pressure pre-infusion. Yeah,
right. Yeah, it's whatever. The problem in this case is it depends. It's strictly dependent on the water pressure in the house. So if you have a pump, you're okay. If you don't have a pump, you might have a very fluctuating pressure during the day.
No, but they use a rotary pump.
They use a rotary pump, yes, but your back pressure, I mean, your normal pressure of the water before the rotary pump kicks in, you would actually have a fluctuating one, because if you don't have a pump in the house to pump the water in, you would have, say, for example, in the morning when everyone is taking a shower, sometimes you probably notice that if you don't have a pump in the house, you might get a trickle out of the shower head. And that also translates to a lower pressure in your infusion in the coffee. So
wait, you're blowing my mind now, Max. I thought the whole point of this pump was that it pumped it and it therefore ergo regulated it. Are you saying that the pump is reliant on another pump?
The pump is reliant on nothing when it kicks in, but your line pressure is the pressure of the water in the house. So in the morning, if you have the aqueduct, the water from the aqueduct in the morning, it will be lower than in the evenings, for example. Normally it sits
in
at
the
about
aqueduct. All I'm hearing here is an Italian talking about the good old days in the Roman Empire,
precisely
where they
if
had aqueducts.
everyone is taking water from the water mains.
Uh-huh.
Your pressure, your water line pressure is going to be lower than
Yeah, but isn't it going to hit the pump, and the pump's just going to take that water and
the pump doesn't work. I mean, if you do pre-infusion with the line, that's all. The pump, it's either on or off, and it goes to 9 bar. That's it.
Oh, I've got what you're saying. So that's what it means. That's
Mhm.
what the whole. Got you. Okay.
So you have pre-infusions of, normally it's about 4 bar,
Yeah.
the mains pressure,
Mm-hmm.
but in the morning sometimes it can be 1 or 2, because if it's an area that is very busy and you don't have enough water for that area, it's you might have problems in that case.
No, I got you. I totally understand. Well, that's important for other people, not for me, because I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and no one's up at that time. It's beautiful. It's a lovely
so you would
time.
have
Yeah. I just realized, am I looking very shifty? Because my camera's there, but you're there. So I keep looking like that.
Oh, I do the same, because I have a large screen, so I'm actually looking at you. But then I realized that the camera.
I think I'm
looking at you, but I'm not.
I'm wondering. Yeah, I probably look very shifty looking. That's a good look on you, Max. I'm gonna grab that screen frame and make that's going to be our thumbnail for YouTube.
Well, like that.
Yeah. So I don't know where we get to. I've completely lost the plot now. Basically,
so PIDs are good.
PIDs are good,
but temperature control is rubbish.
They're good because apparently, here's the word, Max.
Mm-hmm.
The word on the street is that they are now. You can have the heat exchanger machines of today with PIDs are getting temperatures within 1 degree ranges.
Yes.
So they're making them very accurate. So everything that we said before, you can ignore about these.
So up to now, you thought you learned.
We only told you that so that you'd understand how important it is that wasn't true anymore.
Yeah. So whatever you learned up to now forget it, because it's actually not valid anymore.
No, but the valid thing is to know that could be a thing. Mm-hmm. And that thing that it could be is something that you should know about, so that if you're buying something, you're like, but I don't want the thing that's not right. I want the right thing. Don't fool me with the wrong thing. It's also important, anybody buying a machine off of eBay, know what you're getting.
I don't know. My brain is hurting.
What?
I don't know.
But what don't you know?
A lot.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But one thing actually that I would also point out is, as long as you have consistent extraction, sometimes having too much data can actually hinder you.
Are you saying that? Yeah, you're saying we fall for the trap of getting so wound up in the numbers that we forget to taste the coffee.
Exactly. There is always the possibility of paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
Which means that if you get a PID, you're going to have temperature control and temperature measurement up to 0.1 degrees, but is it relevant?
I change the temperature on my coffee,
and that is actually
once or twice a week.
That's precisely on point. So if you do something like us, so changing coffee very often, PID, way to go. But is it worth having the PID and then worrying about, my temperature is changing over the shot, how much it fluctuates between, or would it be best to just heat up everything and then just brew? Because once you reach your plateau and you brew your coffee, that's always the same.
Yeah, if you got the same beans and everything else, you don't need to be changing it.
Once you've dialed it in.
Yeah, dialed in. But you're right. If you're changing the beans a lot, if you're experimenting around a lot, but then, if you listen to this podcast, chances are you're like us and you're playing around a lot. So it probably will be relevant. But
I think for me, at least in my perspective, I think PID is a brilliant thing to have, but not because it makes the machine more stable, but because it allows me to tune in the temperature.
Yeah. I find a huge difference. Like I said before, when I drop the temperature on a darker roast, I drop the temperature, or I raise it up a little bit on a lighter roast bean. I definitely taste the difference. Yeah. Smoother, or less bitter, or I mean, it's not the first thing that you do. In fact, to be honest with you, what I tend to do is I look at the beans that I've got and I tend to change the temperature almost like on a gut feel. Like, okay, this kind of roast, I'm going to set the temperature to 93.5 or 94 or 92. And then I'll tweak everything else. And only if everything else isn't bringing me the results I like, I might change the temperature again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's another variable to play with, but it's a variable that can actually mess up everything, because at 1 degree, changing 1 degree, it changes the different solubilities of the different components of the coffee. So you will actually have a significantly different taste, which is great.
Yeah.
But for example, personally, I would be already happy with something that works as the thermal relays that I have now, but that I can change the temperature. So I'm not really concerned about the PID and having the, being able to stabilize the temperature, everything. It's just I want to brew at 95. Good. Then if it fluctuates around 95, I'm okay with that, because I mean, I don't really turn the coffee machine on and brew the coffee right away. I turn it on, then forget about it, and then half an hour later remember, oh, I wanted a coffee.
Yeah, I go do my yoga. I turn my coffee machine on. I go do my yoga, and by the time I'm trying to think of the word of the day, which she asks me to do, my good old yoga instructor on YouTube, she comes up and says, think of the word that's going to be your word of the day, the word that's going to mean something, what you want to be today. What word is it, Nick? And you're like, I don't know. I can't. Can anybody think of one word that describes how they want their day to be?
Nevertheless,
I don't know. Like, people's lives are too simple. I'm like, well, I want my day to be productive and efficient, but not too anxious. I'm like, then I'm getting anxious. Like, what word is that?
Yeah. Or the word of the day could be something like nevertheless or furthermore.
That's not a good word.
It is a good word. It's
not a good word when you're doing your yoga. What kind of day do you want to have? I want to have the nevertheless kind of day. No, I
want to have a furthermore kind of day. That is when you're writing a scientific paper and you want to sound scientific, you have to put furthermore. And
that's what's called a filler word, Max. That's what's called a filler word, where you're just trying to make stuff up to pad out because you got to be at a certain number of numbers in your words.
Yep.
Document.
It's
furthermore, as I stated previously. We all know that trick, Max.
However, very important. However.
Yeah. So no, I turn my machine on. I go do my yoga. I do my breathing. Although I've got a dilemma. I'm going to wrap it up now because we're rambling now.
Yes, we're rambling as usual. But
it's good. But you're obvioly rambling. I think you started rambling.
I know. Wait.
But I was going to say, but yeah, so I started taking cold showers, right? Oh my God. So the problem is that the espresso that I have in the morning tastes much better after the cold shower, but the machine switched off because it's a Euro compliant machine. God damn it.
Oh, you can buy the switch.
I know. It's another thing I had to buy. I'm also trying to go more minimalist. So what I do is I do my yoga.
And you spend £5?
I do my breathing. Shut up. I do my breathing. and then I've got to change my habit but then after my yoga and my breathing, I want to have my espresso, but I have my espresso and then I take the cold shower. But actually, I should take the cold shower first, because you come out and you're like that. Literally, you're wired. I think it's like, my God, I'm still alive kind of feeling. And then,
I don't
the
do
espresso
that.
hits you.
Yeah, no, I don't do that. I'm actually, one thing that I moved onto this machine as well is I'm actually using the smart plug, a smart plug that's connected to the Wi-Fi. So I can turn the machine on from anywhere, which is brilliant. And
smart plug into the Wi-Fi. So I've got to get one of those.
yes, but you have to leave the machine switched on, which is impossible in your case, I think. So you would have to bypass.
There's a kit. There's a kit that lets you do that.
So if you bypass that,
there's a kit that lets you. So I think you have to get the rocker switch kit. It won't work on the new.
There is one that allows you to bypass it, but the rocker switch is actually the best choice. And to be honest, having the machine hot when you come down is pretty good. So I leave it on now. Well, it's not a rocker switch; it's a press switch. But anyway, I leave it on. I just turn it on and off from the plug.
How much energy does that take? Have you seen electricity bills double in the last quarter?
Did with the Oscar, obviously, but this is it doesn't really make a difference because once it reaches the temperature, it stays there, so it cycles the element.
You know what? I actually heard something last year that made a big difference to me in the way I heat my house in winter, which is that if you have the heating come on twice a day, it's more expensive than just having it heat the entire day, because if you heat once or twice a day, the thing cools down, has to heat up again, cools down, has to heat up again. Whereas if you just have it ticking along. Yeah.
Well, but that is, I mean, you can leave it stable. I have a Nest system, so it actually learns that's actually,
I think we've talked about this before. I have a Nest system, it doesn't work because I can't plug it in. You told me it was very easy and you promised to come around and fix it for me. And this whole COVID.
I have to self-isolate, actually.
Hey, do you remember on our last podcast, we said that, and we joked about it, going from level 4 to level 5.
Mm-hmm.
We said, then they'll make up this new level. They'll come up with level 5 next. What did they do? They come up with level 5.
Yes.
Where are we going to end, Max? Is it going to be, how many levels are we going to get to?
I don't know. I think there is a cap somewhere, but I don't know. I haven't read the full rules of this manual. I haven't read the full manual of this game, so I don't know if there is an experience cap or something.
Yeah.
Like in Dungeons and Dragons. Might be.
Wow. My camera's really not in focus, is it?
I thought it was me.
Yeah, get your glasses on, Max. I'm in perfect focus. I don't know what your problem is.
I don't know.
You see what I'm doing? You see my picture behind me there? That picture on the floor?
Yeah.
See, I thought that was the problem because the painting's got a giant eye on it.
Mm-hmm.
And my camera was always trying to focus on the eye.
It isn't.
My eyes. I don't know what it is. I'll have to play around with it, get it working better because it's annoying even me. God forbid anybody else has to watch us.
Oh well.
Hey Max, let's leave it there, buddy. It was great. It's great to start the new year again.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it is. I'm actually going to. I promise. I will make this commitment right here and now.
Mm-hmm. Let's hear it.
Let's hear it. I will sign you up to Carvetti this week. So the next week's podcast, you'll be signed up and you get some of the beans and things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you know how. I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, you won't get it because it's once a month that it comes through. Right. But it's like a cupping thing. It's a whole cupping thing that we do, and they just sent me through 2 different. It's quite interesting. 2 different beans that they've roasted. The same beans, but they've been roasted differently, and they taste they don't taste very different, but you can definitely taste a difference. And like one's pleasant and one has got a sort of a very distinctive, unpleasant aftertaste. But one's delicious. And I'm going to be very interested when he releases the information about how what he did differently. So we're going to learn lots of stuff from it. So I'm going to get you signed up on that.
Looking forward to that.
All right, buddy. Well, you enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will catch up with you next week.
You too. Thank you.
Man. Oh, thank God that's done. I was going nuts. I'm like in and out of